Today is October the 15th, 2009. My name is Karen Neurohr, and I'm a librarian at Oklahoma State University. And I'm here today with Miss Evelyn Skarky.
Yes.
And this is going to be an interview for the O State Stories Oral History Research Project of the OSU Library, and this particular group of interviews are for the women of Willard. And we're very excited that you all are here this weekend for your 50th reunion and for the opportunity to interview with you. Thank you for participating in the interview today.
Our pleasure.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and about your parents?
I was born and raised in Kingfisher County. Lived on a farm about 10 miles northwest of Kingfisher. I had two younger sisters and a younger brother. They all attended Oklahoma State University. My high school years were during the drought of the 50s. So a farmer's daughter I won't say we had a bad life, we had a good life, but it was different with the drought because there were no crops for a number of years. We had a lot of things that were, as my dad used to say, the banker owned them, but he always said that with a smile.
Mm.
He was a very progressive person in that when I was a freshman and had some problems with one of the courses, I wrote him a letter and told him I wasn't coming back. And I got a letter. I wish I had saved it always, because in it he told me that he'd been a farmer all his life. He said we put crop in the ground and then we pray, and if it goes like it's supposed to, we have a crop in the spring. If we don't, we start all over and we do it again. And that was his way of telling me that I needed that education. I needed to stay where I was. He had to leave school. His mother died when he was a little boy. And he and his brother had left high school. So he was a sophomore in high school and had to be at home and had to help plant and do all of the things that were necessary for a living. And in doing that, it was kind of the basis for what I am, or what I feel I am today. My mother was born and raised at Loyal, Oklahoma. She had about a year and a half, 2 years of college education. She went to the women's college in Chickasha. And then when she and my dad met, they married, and she didn't continue her education. So she was a homemaker, and I liked being raised on the farm. Mm-hmm. My children, when they were little and we moved back here, loved to go back to the farm. They always felt that was a good place to go. And our middle daughter lives in Kingfisher and has raised her two children there. So it's kind of full circle. Mm-hmm. But,
did anyone else in your family go to OSU?
Yes, my sister, just younger than I, who has been gone for 20 years, she came for 1 year. Probably of all of us, should have been the one who stayed. She didn't like school. She was very adept at mathematics, and she went home and she found her a job as a bookkeeper, and probably one of the best ones the co-op ever had in Kingfisher. And then I have a sister that's Barbara. She has a degree in home economics from here. She taught and then worked at the Enid State School in their program where they teach the youngsters how to live out and to go out into an apartment and live on their own. And then I have a brother who is has a degree in agriculture from here. So all four of us attended, and Marie was probably the most capable, but her interests were elsewhere.
Did your parents influence you to choose OSU?
Well, I think in the 50s, with the farm background, this was probably the school for me to attend. However, I had thought I was going to go into nursing, and a good friend, one of the teachers at the school, his wife had graduated from Southwestern, and they had a good nursing school. And she was scheduled to take me out there to enroll in nursing. And we had a nursing course in our high school home economics class. I changed schools and I also changed tunes and chose to come over here.
Had you been to OSU before?
No, I had not been on the campus before. No.
What were your first impressions?
Well, very big for country kid, and beautiful campus. One of the grounds were all immaculate, and I knew one of the men who was responsible for the campus. His daughter had been my friend in high school, and they had moved over here 2 years earlier. So I was not surprised at the beauty of the campus because of all the things that Wilbur always talked about. But there were like, I want to say 17,000 students on campus at the time. I don't know how many are here now.
23,000 now.
So that was, and that was a good size group, probably because a lot of the veterans were coming back to school, starting back to school.
From
that time.
Korean War?
No, more from just kids that had been into the service, like my husband was in the service and then came back, and there were a large number of veterans that were in classes here. So I think the enrollment was probably higher right then than it was, and maybe because of the drought, and a lot of people saw that staying on that farm was not going to be the thing to do.
What was your major?
Vocational home economics.
And when did you graduate?
In May 1959.
Okay. When you came to OSU, was Willard Hall the first place that you lived?
Yes. And I had a very interesting room. My room was right over the front door. And of course, all of these young ladies were searching for that man of their dreams. And it was a very popular room because as freshmen you had to be in the dormitory at 8 o'clock. And you could not leave unless you went to the library from 8 to 10. And our room became the one everybody peeked out the window to see who got the good night buzz and who didn't, because there was no scamming anybody about, I got that special kiss because everybody upstairs was watching. There was no fairy tales. They had to tell the truth.
Well, now, a freshman had to be in at 8 o'clock, but you could go to the library and study from 8 to 10 o'clock. How did they know if you were really going to the library to study?
I would best say that you better had been at the library.
Was there a sign-in sheet over there?
No, there was no sign-in sheet, but I think there was that intimidation that, this is the rules. Today's society is a little different about rules. They were pretty well followed like that in our day. So I know that I only went to the library probably 2 or 3 times a semester. And then because I probably had a lab or something and I couldn't get there, I worked in the cafeteria at Willard. So my time from, say, 5 to 8 was limited from time to time. So,
What did you do in the cafeteria?
I was very fortunate. First year, or the first semester, I gave out coffee and milk and drinks and things like that and served. And then the second semester, the dietitian that was in charge came one day and asked if I would like to work taking tickets and money and stuff. So I did that for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Did you like that better?
Yes. Oh, well, it really, it was, that didn't make a whole lot of difference, but it was a big boost for me because, to be allowed to take care of the money and the stuff like that. I worked with an older lady that had been there for some time, and she became ill, and the dietitian, and she was not going to be back for an extended period of time, and the lady came and asked me if I would like to take that position and until help them, and then I was allowed to stay and do that. So it was an interesting job. I got to meet all of the, I got to meet all of the people from our dorm, 2 boys' dorms across the road.
So the Willard dorm served
meal. Yes, you bought a meal ticket at a certain place, and it could be used at numerous cafeterias.
Oh,
and so I got to meet a lot of interesting people.
What were the boys' dorms that it served?
Oh, I don't know. It was across west. I don't know. I can't remember the names. Murray
Hall.
Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Murray was one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then one of them was the one across from the old home economics building. It was long, skinny, and I don't know whether it's even still there anymore.
I'm not sure either. There may be a picture in the yearbook. Okay, help me visualize what the cafeteria looked like.
Well, the cafeteria was small in comparison to what you think of as a cafeteria today. You went in one door, you went around, you had 2 or 3 choices of everything to choose from. Food was always very well prepared and very well attractive, edible, which you don't think of college or you don't think of school cafeterias as being really good food, but it was a very well run cafeteria. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that I remember most about eating at Willard is on Sundays, the dining area was every table was cloth. And you had a hostess set at the head of the table and the guests, and you were a guest. I mean, if you came in and sat down at one of these tables, the hostess was expected to introduce you to anyone at the table, to visit with you, run much like what we were learning in home economics. Mm-hmm. But, and it gave a very festive, when my parents and my brothers and sisters came, for Sunday dinner, it was beautifully set up. My mom was very impressed. Of course, having gone to a girls' school, that was something they dined on the tablecloth all the time. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of interesting for her, the first time she came, she just was like, oh, wow, Mm-hmm. But I think it led a lot to us learning who sat beside us to eat rather than it just being bring your tray, sit down and eat, get up and leave. People made a real effort to get to know the different people that came in and sat at their table. I saw that change. I was only in the dormitory my freshman and sophomore year, and I knew I stayed friends with the dietitian and then with several people that continued to work there the 4 years we were in school. And whenever they had a party, I always got an invitation to come back because they would have Sunday parties, and everybody made their own Sundays and kind of things. And they would say, well, come join us. But when they stopped doing the tablecloths, I think you saw a difference in the way people meshed when they were at mealtime. Just that one day made a big difference. I think it added a lot. And then for someone who had never been in a situation where they actually went to a restaurant or anyone where they had a tablecloth on the table, I think that was a real learning experience, a real graceful thing.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Who served as the hostesses?
Whoever sat down at that end, at one of the ends, and it was designated, whether it was north side or, the tables were running north-south, so it was like the people that sat in the chair in the south tables, those were the hostesses.
And how many seats would be at a table? Eight.
There were 3 on each side. So it was a small enough setting where people could, have a good conversation and get to know each other. Yeah.
Was the food all you can eat?
No, it was servings.
Was there a salad bar or anything like that?
You had a number of desserts, you had a number of salads to choose from, a couple of entrees, so there was a selection. I know that my mom liked to make custards, baked custards, and some of them, as youngsters, we liked, and some of them we didn't. And she was delighted when she came, and I took a baked custard. And it was cold even. It wasn't hot out of the oven. It was cold. And she said she was delighted to see that I took that and chose that to have to eat because it was something she'd been trying to get us kids to eat, for a number of years. Just didn't quite go over it. But so there were different things that she had that just maybe you had not had before, or maybe you had, and maybe nothing else looked as inviting, and that custard really looked inviting. So,
are there any other foods that stand out in your memory?
No, the one thing that I remember about the cafeteria, as far as my job, was cleaning the coffee pot, and you can imagine the coffee pot was like a 100-cup one of the old-time commercial ones, and I had to get on a 3-step ladder to get up so that you could get the brush down the pipe, and clean it out. So it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Okay, you mentioned that your room was above the door, the entrance, the main entrance. Can you describe what your room looked like?
Well, it wasn't very big. It looked very big then, but I've been in some of my grandchildren since then, and it's not very big. It there were 2 single beds, 2 desks. It had 2 closets. The closets were no bigger than the size of a regular sized door, and that depth. But someone said once, well, what you got from the ceiling down? I'm like, oh yeah. And it did have a lavatory in it, which made it much, for a farm kid, cleanliness. Even though some of us grew up, I didn't have indoor plumbing until I was 12, 13. But cleanliness, and having something to be able to use in your room was a lot different than having to take your everything down to the public bathrooms, which that in itself was an interesting aspect of dorm life. Trotting down the hall in your nightie and your robe and carrying all of your items with you to take a shower or to go to the bathroom, or there were sinks there if you wanted to brush your teeth, something there, But we decorated the window, not with a very heavy curtain, because we found out very soon that that you spread across and shut up weren't going to stay that way with the room that we'd been assigned. So anyway, it's like, okay, got to have that out of the way so we can see everything that's going on downstairs.
I've heard stories about a buzzer system, that each room had a buzzer.
Yes, when you had a guest, they had to go to the desk and ask for you and give you their room number. And then they buzzed the room, and you buzzed back. There was one instance when I was a sophomore. My buzzer went off about 5 o'clock on, I can't remember what it was, Friday or Saturday night, doesn't matter. But anyway, I wasn't expecting anyone. And a lot of the girls were gone for the weekend, busy doing things. And I went down to see who it was. And it was a lady who needed a babysitter. And she thought she had buzzed the right room. And we went through a different number of people that we knew did babysitting, you know. And the house mother's name was Mrs. White, and she's, I said, well, I didn't have anything planned if Mrs. White would check me out, because our parents usually had to check us out in order to do anything like that. I said, if you will, and she knew me well enough to know that I wasn't scamming her, but anyway, she said, I will sign you out. So I went to the car with this lady. She and another lady were going to Oklahoma City to home show. And they were going to be back about midnight. This is about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I had 3 children, and I was to take them to the movie. Then I was to take them to eat, and then take a cab to their apartment. So I had no idea where I was going after dark, except I had an address and a key. And midnight came. No people returned. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. And one of the things that the dormitories had was the house mother who was there through the day. And then you had a night house mother. And she liked to sleep after 10 o'clock. She did not like to be up hurting anyone. And so anyway, they took me back to the dormitory. By the time we got, it was 4 a.m. And I buzzed in, and the lady, she looked at me and she shook her head and she said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Mrs. White can explain to you at breakfast." Because I had to be at work at 6. So I said, I said, "I'll see you downstairs at breakfast." So she went back to sleep. I went to my room, got 2 hours of sleep, went down to work. And when the house mother, Mrs. White, came down, she said, "Goodness, here you didn't come in till 4 a.m. I said, "Right." She said, "Was everything okay?" And I said, "Well, the ladies just didn't come back from Oklahoma City, And I said, I didn't, at midnight I didn't know what to do, let alone 1, 2, or 3. So I said, I was there. So she kind of shook her head. She felt bad that she had probably even sent me out, but probably felt better that it was me than someone else. But anyway, the night house mother came down later, and she said, "I can't believe what they did to you." And I said, "I apologize for waking you up at 4 o'clock in the morning." But anyway, she was able to laugh about it. But I think when she saw me, it was like, oh my gosh. And she didn't realize anybody was still checked out. That was the thing, is when she saw me, her first thought was that I had skipped out. But Mrs. White had not communicated with her that I was properly signed out. Yeah, it was if you had a date, they came, they buzzed you, and then they waited in the living area, which was beautiful, had lots of nice sofas and beautiful furniture, and neat place to meet somebody for the first time.
Was it like a doorbell kind of a buzzer on the
Just,
wall?
Yeah, one of the little round
Button.
buzzing. Yeah. Yeah, you can hear them going off, on date nights or weekends, they'd be going off. Somebody'd holler, "My date's here." Lots of fun. I'd forgotten about the buzzer.
What about the telephone?
Oh, well, the telephone, you had to sit in line on the floor beside and wait your turn. And that was not a fun thing. I had a good friend whose boyfriend was injured in a shooting accident. And I sat with her on the floor most of the night waiting for news of him coming out of surgery. So the telephone thing sticks in my mind for that reason. I was already dating the man that I would marry, so I didn't get a lot of telephone calls. I didn't have to make a lot of telephone calls or wait to get any. But yeah, it was a little room. At least had a little bit of privacy. As little as, about as much as anybody would give you. But yeah, you had to wait your turn. Sometimes it seemed forever.
Was it on a table or on the wall?
I think it was on the wall, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. I know the one Barbara and I sat next to all night. We went down into the lobby down on the first floor, and had given him that one that was in the booth, more of a phone, like we used to have phone booths, and given him that one so that they would have a direct call to us. And I remember sitting down there way into the morning before we got news that he was going to be okay. Been in a hunting accident and accidentally just blows your mind.
Do you remember, was there diversity in Willard, ethnic or international diversity?
Yes. There were, in the School of Home Economics, there were a lot of foreign students. There was and a lot of age difference too. I know that some of the men that came from Neurohr Hall were 4 or 5 years older than I was, and it was the same in Willard. There were a lot of different. We had a lot of students from Ethiopia and Pakistan. I know when we had our there was a fair, I can't think what it was called. Home Economics sponsored it, and there was the fair each fall. And there were like 17 rooms, and people from different countries that brought in their clothing and products and souvenirs, what we would call souvenirs, and set them up. And we had, it was very well attended by the people from the city of Stillwater. Very well. It was just like a small United Nations night. And a lot of those students, the ladies, lived in Willard. They were always, I always felt they were very well accepted. I think the experience of having worked with them, showing what their life had been like and the things that how they were brought up and the things that they lived with, probably influenced a lot of how I react when I meet someone that's from a foreign country. I will say most of them spoke not really broken English, but English that probably very proper English in compared to what we spoke or what we even speak today. Because so many foreign countries, you take English for 5, 6, 7 years, where we do not have that length of time to study it here. But there was a great diversity, not only in ethnicity, but in also in the age, in the, I had, there were a group of seniors that lived across from me when I was a freshman, and we felt kind of lowly at times, and sometimes we're treated kind of lowly, but that's okay. We had our chance then the next year when the freshmen came in, there was kind of a
pecking order, maybe?
Yeah, there was a pecking order. But some of those people, you got to know them really well, and you admired them so much because they were older and they were, their classwork was almost finished and they were going out in the world. It was a good experience for a freshman to be that closely associated with them. And sometimes the freshmen got even.
Does anything in particular come to mind with
but
that?
it's not for camera.
Oh. Okay, we'll save that for off the camera then.
Well, I will tell one. My freshman roommate is a part of this group, Georgia Kirby, and we had 2 upperclassmen that lived 2 doors down from us, and they would always go to the library and study. And we got into their room one night. I don't know how, I can't remember that, but we took a closet door off. And my roommate, who was supposed to be in her room because we were freshmen and you didn't go out into the hall, except to the bathroom, and you better have to really go. She was carrying the door over her head down the hall, and she met our proctor. And the proctor just took one look, never said a word, just passed her by, never said anything. But anyway, we hid the door out onto the roof. In one of the girls' rooms was onto the roof, and we put it there. And then we all went back to our rooms, and I can still hear Kellyville's scream and the words when she opened that door and the closet door was missing. Everybody knew something dramatic had happened, so there were a few things.
Did they get even?
No, I don't think she ever got even. I don't think she ever figured out who did it. Oh. Maybe she would have gotten even if she had, but anyway, there were a lot of girls that some that you knew you could have fun with. I mean, you could hear Kellyville, but she was a neat lady. I'd like to know today what happened to her and where she is, she and her roommate both, because they were very, very, they were interesting people for someone who just got to college. Mm-hmm. They were very sweet people when you got to know them, and someone that you could play a joke on and mm-hmm. survive.
When you were talking about the event that the diversity related event in the different rooms, and so the students were there tables that they would have their things yes. out on, and then they were there, and were they just interacting with people who came yes. in? And
it was more or less, it was set up like a show and tell, mm-hmm. and each of the students from their own country was given a room, mm-hmm. and they could display their items, mm-hmm. and then people just went from room to room and visited.
Was there
ask them questions?
So there wasn't a formal kind of a talk or presentation.
No,
it was a one-on-one.
It was a one-on-one, mm-hmm. And it was something that the college really, I mean, not just the School of Home Economics at the time, but the college itself, because we'd had this great background of people coming from all of these countries, and it gave them a chance to share. I was always very impressed with it, and even more so because not just the students and the college, but that the city of the people who lived in Stillwater really backed and came. And of course, as I got older and understood how some of their programs worked, I could understand. And then also, I met a lady, it's probably been 25 years ago, who was responsible for foreign students coming into Oklahoma City and meeting them at the airport, finding them a place to live, matching them with people. And so I had a greater appreciation then of the people from Stillwater accepting, because Stillwater, Oklahoma was a fairly small place for them to go. And I have a friend that works at the airport now, and he is always excited when school's going to start in the fall, because OSU comes down and has this big banner that says, "Welcome to OSU." And as the foreign students are getting off of their planes, many of them, they're lost. No bigger than Oklahoma City's airport is. They're lost. But seeing the sign, and then there are greeters there that welcome them. So when I look back at what the people that lived in Stillwater did for this program, they were accepting, and that was a part of the learning process for those people that came, and then also for us who were other students that came to the college.
That's wonderful. I haven't heard about that ever before.
I participated. Well, I the first 2 years when I was in the dorm, I helped them had set up and hosted one. One of the students would just be in that room, and welcome and introduce and that kind of thing. So that was the most formal part of it, was just that we were there kind of as the go-between and to visit with anyone who came in the room and that kind of thing. But
where was it held?
In the Home Economics building, just one classroom right after another.
And so it was just a free event that was open to the community.
And I wish I could think of what it was called. Maybe it'll pop in.
Yeah, maybe it's in one of the yearbooks.
It could be.
We could, yeah. Okay, that's great. It's wonderful to hear about that. Do you remember anything about the Dean of Women?
Yes, Dean Patchin was one of those people who would come on Sunday, and she ate at the cafeteria, and she was always, she sat at different tables. She never saw her sitting, just with somebody that she knew. She would sit at different tables and visit with the students, and that's how she got to know the different people that lived in Willard.
Was there a dress code on campus, in any place on campus, or?
I don't remember. I know we wore a lot of skirts and sweaters. Slacks, I don't know. Jeans were probably maybe for picnics and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily know of a dress code. A little more dressed up than today's.
Did you ever hear about the panty raid on campus?
Oh, I was in dormitory and panty raid, yes.
Oh, well, tell me what you remember about that.
One of my best friend's brother said he made it to the second floor of Willard Hall. So I remember him telling that in front of her, and she was shaking her head like, "Oh no!" I know it happened, and I don't know whether I was in. I cannot remember that I was in the dormitory that night. I may have been out the library because I don't recall being in the dormitory. But I do remember this young man still like, "You've got to be kidding."
So did they, the boys just would descend into the building? And
Yes, I don't know how they got in. They'd had to have almost come in, or somebody almost had left the door open because entry was to the front door and to the desk and buzzing in. So I'm not sure how they got in. I know that young man yet today. I may go home and ask him. Tell him I was asked that question on an interview. And he's an Oklahoma City attorney, so that'll be an interesting question. I may have to call him next week and see.
Well, tell him we'd like to hear his story too for our interviews.
Okay. Oh, that would be funny. I can almost see him going, "Oh, you gotta be kidding." Oh, funny.
What do you remember about the library?
Well, I spent a lot of time at the library. I took several library science courses.
Can you tell me about those? I haven't heard about those before.
You haven't heard about those? Well, my husband, my library first one, I think I took one freshman and sophomore year. And I got to be pretty good at looking up things and knew where to look because I'd had the course. My husband was an engineering student, and he was so up to his ears in math courses and labs, and when he needed help to go to the library once, or he needed some information, he said, "I don't know where to go." So I took him up, showed him different places to look, and he said to me, "Well, where did you learn this?" I said, "Library Science 101, and I don't know whether it was 202, but whatever." And because courses like that were, I don't know whether people thought they were zero courses or they were not necessary, but I know that with the papers that we had to write in our sophomore or junior and senior years, home economics, and for classwork, we were always looking up something. And psych classes, I mean, I would have been lost without those courses. They really did a good job. We learned about the Dewey Decimal System and how to apply it, and how to go into a specified area, and find what you were looking for in there, different ways to locate something in particular. And I was very glad that I had it. What I think is interesting is when my girls were in school and wanted to look up something at the library, of course now they'd go to the computer and it'd do it for them. Is it Wikipedia? Would be their resource, but I could go to the library, I could take them and help them to look up something and not have to have the librarian, you get a feel for, we lived in Bethany for 33 years, so that I knew the Bethany library and how to go in and look for stuff without having to have them look it up for me. But I thought they were very useful courses. I think all students should have to take library courses, but that was not an engineering.
So that must have been an elective for you then.
Yes, I think in home economics, vocational home economics, we had few electives.
Mm-hmm.
My husband in engineering, he had to have 24 more hours than I did to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And he only had, he probably didn't have 5 electives if he had that in a 4-year course.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Where in the library, was there a classroom where they taught these courses? Do you know? Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
And
I don't remember being, that we were actually in the library.
For the classes?
But I don't remember.
okay.
I don't
And
remember.
so the reason you took the second one was because you really liked the first one?
That was very beneficial.
Mhm.
It was very beneficial. And of course, in your freshman, sophomore year, you're not writing a lot of papers, you know, but I knew that when I got into our junior year, there would be a lot of classes that we'd have to write papers and need to know the resources. The School of Home Economics did not have their own private library. I don't know whether any of the other schools did or not. And then I came, having lived in the on the farm. Our school, I went to Dover High School. We had an excellent library for a small school, and we had a Kingfisher, which was 10 miles away, had a good public library, and I had utilized both of those. So just knowing that we were going to be able to go in and find things that we didn't have access to before.
Did you have a favorite study spot in the library?
Oh, usually when it was very quiet, away from everybody else, because I was not a genius student, and I needed quiet. And some people could have other people, you know, next or at the same table with you, but I like to be by myself. Somewhere just where there was nobody else, so that I could really study.
Have you been back in the library when you've been on campus?
I haven't for a long time.
Oh, well, you need to come.
I know.
We'll
There are a
give
lot
you
of the buildings that I haven't been. I was here, it's probably 89. It's been a long time since I've been in the library.
It's changed since then. You'll be surprised.
It was always such a beautiful place, though. It was always so immaculate.
There's some renovation going on right now on the first floor. But yeah, hopefully you all will have opportunity to come over sometime. Okay, let's talk about other traditions that Willard might have had that stand out in your memory.
Willard traditions?
Holiday traditions, homecoming traditions.
Well, for homecoming, we had a house decoration or a float, and I participated in that one year. I think one of the traditions that I remember best was the Monday night dance hour. One of the girls in our group she was proctor, and she was responsible for that. A couple of times she needed to be gone, and I filled in for her. And if you were the person in charge, you weren't allowed to dance. And of course, the boys would come from everywhere to dance with the girls. And years later, I was in Kansas City, Kansas, at a square dance convention, and I met a square dance caller, and he told me that his wife had graduated from OSU, and he had gone to school here for 2 years. And it was when I was a freshman and a sophomore. And he said, "Where did you live?" And I said, "Willard Hall." And he looked at me kind of funny, and he said, "I probably danced with you." I said, "You've got to be kidding." And as it turned out, his wife, a good friend of mine, lives in Mustang, was a square dancer. And we looked up in the yearbook, and we were in a little bitty triangle in the home economics picture. We're all three. And of course, none of us knew each other then. But sure enough, he said, I said, well, maybe, I didn't remember dancing with him, so I told him, I said, well, maybe that was one of the nights when I was in charge and you couldn't dance with somebody. And we never figured that out. Anyway, that was a big tradition.
Mm-hmm.
All of the dormitories had them, and good place for the guys and the gals to get together and meet each other. They were dancers, well, it was a wonderful place.
Was there live music for those dances?
No, I think we had records.
Records. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did many of the girls have record players in their rooms?
Oh, I don't remember that we did.
Mm-hmm. What about radios?
Yeah, there were radios,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember any record players.
Was there a television?
No. No, I don't even think we had we didn't have televisions down in the waiting area.
How about in the student union? Do you remember?
I don't remember that, because I went in the student union between classes to study, so I wouldn't have been looking for a television. Television was just, I don't know.
It was still pretty new.
Pretty new.
wasn't it?
Yeah, we
Mhm.
had our first TV in 1949, and 55 was not long after that. So still a new thing.
So did you meet your husband at OSU?
No, I met my husband when I was a freshman in high school. He went off to the service when I was a sophomore, and when he came out of the service in June, when I graduated from high school in 1955, and I was working as a waitress in a restaurant in Kingfisher, and he came in, and we had corresponded some, and then my last year of high school, the young man I'd been going with, I decided that I wanted to have more fun as a senior. We had a small class, and there were things that we needed to do as classmates, and so anyway, I hadn't been dating anyone, and he came in and said he'd gotten out of the service a couple of months early, and he was going to OSU to school, and I said, I'm already enrolled. So we were here together our freshman and sophomore year, and married between our sophomore and junior year, and both finished together in 1959.
Did you go back and visit Willard after you were married?
Yes, I've been there a couple of times. When it was renovated, one of the young ladies that had been a part of the reunion group had died, and we asked if we could put up a plaque and put up a memorial to her. And when came homecoming that year, we were allowed to go in as a group and to present our plaque and to see where it was going to be. And then in more recent years, after when my husband had a young man that worked under him that was going to be married here. And he invited us to the wedding, and the reception was in Willard Hall, which was kind of interesting because, it was really different. It really had changed. And he invited his boss. He didn't expect him to attend, and we showed up, and I told him then that I said, can they sneak me upstairs to see where my room was? And so he got someone to go behind the scenes and take me up to where the rooms were, of course the one over the door, and then the one down the other end of the hall that I had stayed in. And he thought that was really neat, that I got to go and see those.
That's great. Do you remember any controversy when the name changed from Oklahoma A&M to Oklahoma State University?
I think the controversy, if there were any, was because we were going to have to learn all these new songs.
Oh.
All of these words. I tried to think if I could sing the ones that we had before, you know. You're not too sure you can remember those.
Can you still
But-
sing them?
No,
Oh.
no. OAMC, OAMC, I can remember that part. I think we're all alarmed at change. I think it was like, oh my gosh, tradition is down the tubes, but that was not true. But I can remember us talking about, you know, oh my goodness, we're going to have to learn all these new songs. So.
Okay. Let's see what else. This group of women have really stayed close through the years. Have you been to the reunions?
Yes, I only missed one, and then my husband was ill, and I couldn't handle it, so I did not participate. But together we were to all of them until he was gone, and then I continued. They have been a great support. One of the gentlemen is the minister, and later we have a lady who's the minister. They were always there for you. The group has stayed together, I think, because all came from small communities where there was togetherness, cohesiveness. We all, you had to go out and work, do things, be together as a family. So I think that part of our lives has really, and believe me, there's great diversity in this group. We have one of about everything. We have, a lot of the ladies have taught for many years, followed their husbands. Mm-hmm. So it's when I tell people that, you know, we're still getting together after 50 years, it's like they can't hardly believe it, you know. And it's an interesting group. It's an interesting group.
Do you all keep in touch via email?
Everybody but me, and I'm the only one that doesn't have email. I think that was a direct question. They'll be surprised to know it's coming.
They didn't set me up for that.
I thought this weekend I should have went to look to see how many stamps I owed the people getting together for this group, so that I could have brought them a stamp for the things. They've been good about it. I have just finished 16 classes learning to use my new computer. So
well, congratulations.
Email will be the next step.
You will probably love it.
Oh, I think I will.
Do you have any further stories about your time at Willard or OSU?
Well, I think my time at OSU has to be with my husband and this group. Mm-hmm. He was a top-notch engineering student, had a wonderful life, provided a wonderful life for me, for our family. I never worked outside the home. I was a stay-at-home mom, and that mainly was because I remember once we thought we were going to have to move and leave Oklahoma City, and my husband said I would rather eat beans and pedal somebody's gas. And I said, well, I could go, I could get a job. I could go and teach, which I had never done. And he said, no, I don't want you to do that. So I think that this group and being a part of this group is very special, very, very special. The friendships, I mean, we love each other, we support each other, we care for each other. And then the fact that I was very blessed to be able to spend 2 years here as a married student, and had a good marriage, 48 years, and so that's very special.
Okay. And now you have a grandson here.
I have a grandson here. Lauren and I have 5 grandchildren, and 4 of them will probably be OSU grads. Our oldest daughter is an OU grad. She married an OU grad, and they have one of those red kids.
Oh.
And but the funny part is that he has indicated that he might be interested in veterinary medicine, and I told him, I said, "You'll never guess where the College of Veterinary Medicine is in the state of Oklahoma." But anyway, all of the grandkids love OSU except for Grant, but he's hopeless. He's hopeless.
Oh.
No, my husband, when Carol said she was going to go to OU to school, it took him about 6 months before he was going to pay her bills because he just was. But she went with friends, and she did well, and she's had a good life, and that's the most important. They all have their good kids, and they've raised good kids. But Zach is a junior in the School of Engineering, and then his sister and the other granddaughter are juniors in high school, so they're going to be here very quickly.
Well, thank you for the interview. I appreciate it very much. My tape is out, I'm afraid. It's just ending, so it's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Glad we could share.